the interface of Natron, the very first thing I want you to worry about is project settings before you proceed any further. Because, let's see where to find it. Display, show project settings. This is how we find it. And then, or you come here, node graph, and you tap S, and then you get project settings. Okay, because this defines your technical specifications for delivery. You cannot get this wrong from the start. What is this? This is the output format. This is your frame rate and all the settings that you need to deliver. What you have here is a list of settings. Now let's assume list of output formats. Let's assume you do not have what you want in here. What you need to do is quite simple. If you have shot something with your camera and your camera has the settings for delivery that you want, then you just bring in the file and come here, of course, connected to the viewer, come here, new format. It's copying from viewer number 1, or it could be any other viewer. If you have more, copy from and put the name of your custom format. Okay, so this is in case it is not listed in here. The second bit is going to be the frame rate. The frame rate is very important because that depends on the region for which you're delivering. Now, if it's 25, it's 24, 29 point something, this is important. And this is not set automatically because when you bring in a footage, I did not, say for example, frame range first, 0 to and last, 696. I didn't set this one up. I didn't put this manually. So what happened? When I imported the first one, the project took the frame range first and last from the first footage I brought in. So this is how it was set. But this is an image sequence. It does not have a frame rate information. Frame range is, frame rate is here 24. So be careful that you need to change it to whatever works for you. If it's 30, if it's 25, this is your technical delivery requirements, okay? And you need to change your incoming footage, whatever you bring in, you import, you change the frame rate for that, okay? Because we have talked about it during the compositing, and when I connected a few, we had that warning that the frame rate was different. So this is what it was about, the frame rate in here. Good. Now, the first bit is the output format, the second bit was the frame rate, and the third bit is the frame range, and I said it was copied from the file, but this doesn't have to be the case when it comes to your read. Now, this is project settings. The project settings can be this long, or you can trim it to less than that, because initially, when you have a film, you have the clapperboard time, you have the action is being mentioned there, and you also have cut. You don't need all of that when you're working with the with a file, okay? So assuming you're not getting it straight from the timeline, you're getting it straight from the camera. In the timeline, you would already have cut these parts. So take the frame range that you need, and only the frame range that you need when we're talking about importing in the read. Here, read, frame range, first frame and last frame, just select the ones you need. And this way, when you come to the project settings, you only use what you need, okay? All right, so this is the first bit, most important project settings. Now we're going to move to other things, which is importing footage. How do we import footage in here? How did we get this stuff in here? Now, of course, you've already seen in the compositing, quick compositing exercise that I've just dragged and dropped. Well, this you can do it all the time, anytime. But I wanted also to point out that unlike After Effects, if you are coming from After Effects, unlike After Effects, this doesn't work with importing or exporting. This works with reading and writing. So if you come up here, File, you will not find anything import, and you will not find anything export. It's all about project. It does nothing else but project. New project, open, everything is about projects here. So the mindset in a node-based compositing is everything happens with nodes. So you want to bring in something that's going to be a read node. This is why this is called read, and this is called read. And the opposite of read is write, which means when we want to export, you're going to need a write node. It needs to be, so okay, just tab write. Here you got it. This is your write node. And it tells you, okay, save sequence, and you need to put the file name and the extension and whatnot. Okay, good. Right. This is how it works. Read and write and notes, okay? Where do you find them? Well, you can come here and tap and then type read, or you can just use the shortcut R, okay? Or you can come over here, and I would recommend it to be the last resort, to come to the left and select image and select read, because there are some nodes you are going to be using so often, you don't have time to go and grab them from the list. You're going to be using read very often. You're going to be using merge very often. You're going to be using transform very often. You're going to be using roto very often. So these things you want to know the shortcuts for, or simply come here and write tab and press tab and start writing them. Merge. I think your most likely course of action is going to be the tab, unless you really are going to use these four. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the most common ones. Of course, if you're using very often blur as well, or any other node, you want to know the shortcut for that. So this is M, this is T, this is O, this is R, and then right is going to be W, something like that. Yeah, W. Cool. All right. So now that we have talked about importing and exporting, I would like to bring your attention, to draw your attention to the following. What do we read? What do we import? What kind of file? During compositing phase, it's a bit different. The mindset is a bit different than when you are editing. When you're editing, you bring in footage from the camera. It's a video file. When you are working with compositing, you don't composite. You're actually going to bring in several files, right? And you're not compositing only 2D with 2D. So this is an image 2D, right? You are also compositing 2D with 3D. But haven't you noticed that 3ds Max, Maya, Blender, Houdini, Cinema 4D, all the 3D packages, when you come to render, what do you render? Do you render a video file? Or do you render image sequences? You get it. It's all about image sequences. So compositing is about image sequences. Okay? I will be using some video files during the course of this training, but I want to draw your attention that you should be using sequences more often than not. Okay, whenever you can. Because why is that? Because file support. Importing, in terms of importing, Natron supports a list of files. And this isn't a limitation of Natron. I'm going to tell you that Nuke has even a shorter list of things that it supports. I mean, the paid, the expensive version, Nuke Studio. Let's go to Nuke Studio here. Right, this is Nuke. And I'm going to attempt just to import a normal read, normal MOV file, okay? Let's bring in normal MOV file. Error. Okay, so I got an error. Let's bring in another. Same story. Error. Now, this is Nuke. You would expect an expensive piece of software to be able to read at least .mov files. I'm working here in, this is a Windows machine, so Nuke in Windows does not necessarily support MOV. And it also doesn't support MXF. MXF is the Sony native format for cameras. All the Sony cameras record in MXF. Now you bring in MXF, you get an error. It doesn't recognize the file. The problem doesn't lie in the software, Nuke, or in Natron. Let me try to bring in something else for Natron to show you support as well. Natron, we're going to go up, and I'm going to try to bring in a red file. EXR's compositing. No, this is not the one. I'm trying to get you some red files here. Yes, red footage. This is red raw footage, R3D, from Red Camera, okay? When you bring it in, initially you don't get an error, but as soon as you say, well, this is connected one, and you just disconnect this one, and you start in the timeline, if you move like this, you get read 3 error, invalid data found when processing input. Now, Natron does not support red raw. It does support some other formats. Instead of, why am I telling you all these stories? Instead of you worrying about, oh, my file is not supported, therefore maybe I should not be using this software because it's frustrating, I need to move to another one. That is not the point. The point is, in the first place, you should be using image sequences and not file formats. Image sequences are supported by any format, any software. Okay, so this is why I really find it in Natron a wonderful thing that when you come here and you press R, when you want to read, it doesn't give you open sequence like you would get here in Nuke. In Nuke, when you do R, it tells you read files. It really tells you exactly what you should do. Open sequence. You need to be working with sequences, okay? So hopefully this is clear. We're going to move to the next part. The next part is about when you want to read, you are able to see what you are reading here. Let me just go back to my... There's a Natron bit here. There's a Compositing XRs. Right. There's this here. I mean, you won't be able to know if you have too many files. Maybe it's not too clear from the sequences, the sequence 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. You just click on this arrow here, and it's going to give you an idea of a preview. I mean, a thumbnail preview of the file. Okay, that is one. And one thing is, of course, we talked about bringing the node from here, read. You wouldn't do that for the nodes that you use very often. You would do it for other nodes, and I really suggest you go and discover and explore other nodes. We're going to be working with quite a few of these, quite a few. But there are some others that I really want you to just get in the habit of just discovering them. Don't use this menu as your first course of action. Use it when you don't know what you're looking for, right? Okay, you are going to find that this is organized by category. The first one is image, and this deals with bringing in stuff and exporting it, writing it, rendering it. You also have some other stuff here, like the checkerboard, the color bars, and the color wheel. I may be thinking this is redundant or useless. These actually come in very handy. And the constant. Constant is basically a solid. Like if you're coming from a from After Effects, it's a solid. There is also a solid here. There's also a solid, but I tend to use the constant more often as a solid. Okay, so what is this? Let me just connect the color bar. It gives you a color bar, and you think, what should I use it for? You may be interested in checking colors or or something. Like this is like, for example, you are going to change to whatever color and use it as a background. Where is my constant? I just lost my connection. Right. When you do, say, for example, screen replacement, or you want to replace a banner, replace a sign, sometimes you want to use a constant. Sometimes you want to use a checkerboard, for example, to see that there are no distortions when you are replacing. It is really handy. And if you want, say, for example, to work with hue shift, then it's handy also to have the color wheel. These are inputs, right? It's like instead of having video files or image sequences as input, you have this as input, okay? And you can then merge or do whatever you want with these. They come in quite handy. Now, let's move to the next. This part here is draw. It's mostly about rotoscoping and other pen tools, right? This is about time, and it's sorry, time remapping related things. This is shuffle, and it's a very useful node about color channels. So you're able to switch the green, blue, the red, green, blue, and alpha channels. And then we have here the color. Now, this is your color grading stuff. Okay, color correct, color lookup, hue correct, hue HSV, which also acts as a hue shift, saturation. You've got quite a few notes in here, right? Then there is filter, keyer, and the rest. Okay, there's plenty of lists. Keyer is very important. Now, this is when you want to key blue screen, green screen, and you could also use them actually to key some other things. But most often than not, it's going to be green screen. All right, we'll see this in a later section. Okay. Next bit is to talk about the viewer here. Okay, I'm going to take you to another project, and let's look at this. You are sometimes going to need more than one viewer, because you can, as part of the interface, split the viewer. Come here and say split horizontal. I'm going to tap F to center it. Yeah, I just used F in the keyboard, and you can come here and add a new viewer, and that's going to create automatically a second viewer for you here, which you could connect to anything you want. These are just viewers. So it's not like source footage and timeline. There is no timeline in here. We're just compositing, and the output goes through the viewer. I mean, it's rendered with the right, but it's the viewer that lets you see what you're doing. Let me connect this viewer to this guy over here. Okay, I've got a child levitating in the air. What do we have here? It has already been keyed from a green screen, and we have already removed the ropes. The kid was suspended by ropes. What we have here is you have the possibility to work on the composite as well as individual files separately. Now let's have a look at what we can do. You can view RGB, or you can also view the alpha, because when you're keying, you're going to be using two viewers, and one is for the alpha, one for the green screen source. So you can see red channel, green channel, blue channel, of course the noisiest, and alpha. Okay. You also have the gamma, right? Let me just increase this a bit. Okay. Every time you make a change somewhere, it turns red, which means that if you notice something is weird about your viewer, chances are you have changed something. So go to the red and click on it. It goes back to the default value. This is gain, this is the gamma. Okay, we have already seen, let me just increase this. We have already seen, I think we don't need this one anymore. I'll just delete the viewer as well, close the pane. We have already seen this part, A-B comparison in this project. In this one, when we had these two together, right? So this comparison, we've already seen it. You just come here under, and you can use the wipe. Right, okay, you can wipe. And same story with turn in, right? So that is one. And then another bit is the region of interest. Let's say, well, because this can be quite time consuming in terms of calculations, we know it's already doing its best. Natron is not recalculating nodes twice, we've said that. But if you're interested in just a part, then probably that's what you want to focus on. It gives you the possibility to do that, okay? So let's assume these two girls are the only ones we want to be focusing on, the left part, and then we move later on to the center, then we move later on to the right part. Then you are working and visualizing just that part, okay? You can also, depending on how heavy your footage is, now in this case it's not much, just HD, but if you're working, say, with 4K DCP and you're working with several of them, chances are you may want to work with the proxy mode. Now this is an option. It's not necessarily the case that you want to do it all the time, but you may want to do that. Let me deactivate this wipe thing. And when you come here, you have activate. So you need first to activate it, and then it gives you reducing the resolution. You divide by 2, you divide by 4, or let's see the effect of 32. Say it's all pixelated. It gives you the possibility to work on this version if it's lower, to work on a lighter version. This does not impact your final output. It's just viewing, okay? All right, let's go back and see what other things do we have in here. Of course, we have the timeline bit, and you have the in and the out. Now, this is the first, let me go back here. This is the first part of the frame. Viewer, let me move to number 1. This is, and disconnect this one. This is the first part of it. The first frame is 0, and the last frame is 696. Now, we can ourselves come here and to the read and change it. Okay, I'm going to delete this one. To the read and change this manually. You say, okay, I just wanted to start somewhere like 10 and 600, for example. Now, this is one thing. Another, which means that, have you noticed here that it has changed? Initially it was 0, and now it's 10. Now, what happened is that this first frame, it didn't give us an error because here it says 0, but it says here 10. I'm supposed to be standing on 10, but on 0 I can already see it because before you can define the behavior of before, hold. That means it's going to freeze the frame for number 10 and apply it for 9, 8, 7, 6, up till 0, which is also the case for last frame, 600. If you go to 650, you will find that you don't get an error unless you want to. You can say, show me error, but it holds and it keeps the last frame. It's up to you what you want to do with this, okay? This is, why did we talk about this? Because then we need to talk about this part here. Now, these are independent from each other. You can set the in and the out. You can come here and set this as in, right? How do you do that? You can either type you can come here to, say 55, and you just type in, press Alt-I. Alt-I, it gives you the input, 55. Now, if I want the 592 to be the out, it's going to be Alt-O, and here I have defined the input and the output, the in and out, okay? Sorry, not the input and output, the in and out regions, which is reflected here. You could also do that manually by typing here, okay? Or here, right? And you could go to a frame, say 300. I'm going to take us there, okay? So these are the main things in the interface I want you to worry about. You have the curve editor and the dope sheet. These are more things that we're going to be working later when we have some keyframes and stuff. But for now, most of the time, you are going to be working with the node graph. Another thing about the interface is for the viewer, when you come here and you want to see something in here, there are numbers assigned, okay? So there's a 1 and then there's 2. A viewer can take up to 10 inputs, okay? So you can connect 10 videos, 10 source files, 10 image sequences to one viewer. And you can have as many viewers as you want. You can add image and another viewer, okay? And you can add another viewer if you want, right? So it depends on your needs. You could say, for example, here, have split horizontal and another split horizontal. And you could move viewer 2 here and viewer 3 here, okay? Right? So we talked about the split, but what I would like to talk about now is the number assignment. So let me remove this. Let's just keep it. We're going to work with viewer number 1, okay? Viewer number 1 on its own, let's move these ones to the side, can take up to 10. So how do you see it? You can either connect like this if you want to see it in the viewer, or you can do it differently. You can come here if you are, and it depends on where your cursor is. If your cursor is on the graph, a node graph is one thing. If your cursor is on the viewer, it does completely different thing, okay? If you're here and you tap 1, then you have assigned to this source file number 1. I click here and tap 2. Then this becomes number 2. Here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 0 is for 10, okay? 0 is for 10. Now, what have I done? I have assigned numbers. Yes, it's true. When I click in here, it shows up here. But if I want to call for the viewer to see something, then I need to be up here with the cursor on the viewer and then tap the number I need to call. See what I said? When I did this, automatically I have the comparison between quite a few videos, because in here, in the preferences, this was left on. This is what could be annoying, because I never intended actually to make any comparisons, so I don't want that. Save. Let me disable this stuff in here. Close pane, and disable it. This is viewer number 1, viewer 3, and disable this stuff, okay? So you can take up till 10, and when you're here, you can come 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You are calling 7, 8, 9, 10. You are calling from the file to view it. But if I come here, what is this number? 1. If I tap 4, I have just changed the assignment to 4, and 1 is vacant. So be careful, please, when you are playing with numbers, when you're working with numbers, your cursor defines what happens. Down here, you're assigning. Up here, you're viewing. We will start very differently. We're going to go directly into a compositing exercise, and we will get a final result. And only then we'll come back and explain the interface and introduction to the Natron and everything else, okay? Let's do that. It's going to be very quick, very fast. I want to composite the shot of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children levitating in the air with this background over here where I have a lake, okay? And I'm going to put a rock in the foreground, okay? I'll select all my footage and I'll put it in here, drag and drop, and remove the Windows interface. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids levitating in the air. Okay, this was, oh, here, kids. There's a rock and there's a background. This is already pre-keyed, okay? So it was green screen, and we removed the green screen just quickly for the purposes of the exercise now. Okay, so what I will do is, well, you notice this is connected, so that's why we're able to see here. What I want to do is just merge all of these together. Like, I want them all in the same image. So I need something, I just clicked on, pressed on the tab button in the keyboard to get this list, and I write merge, and I press enter, and I get this merge node. Okay, I want to merge all of these things at once. How do we do that? Well, B sounds like a background. Let's do that. And let me connect this viewer to here. And then I want to have the foreground. So that's going to be something like A. Okay, so I will organize first my foreground by distance from the camera. So this is the furthest one. And I will start by the furthest one because the last one you add is the closest to the camera. This is the furthest one. These two are about the same. Then this one, then this is the closest one to the camera. Then we have the rock, but then the rock I'm going to put somewhat separate, okay? Because I want to do some additional work on it. Good. Let's connect this. I go to A and select connect this one. I get a message, a warning about the frame rate. I will discuss this later, okay? But now we just want to go smoothly and fast with the compositing. So I'll just add this one and ignore this one for now. And you notice every time I add one, so A4, and then I get A5. If I connect A5, I'm going to get A6 somewhere here, okay? So every time you connect one, you get an additional input. Good, okay. Well, I can add the rock now, but I want them to be in the right place. Okay, let me just put them first in the right place before I add the rock. I want them to be levitating somewhere in the background there, somewhere above the lake. So that would mean I need to reduce their size to give the impression of distance from the camera. Let's do that. Reducing is a transformation. So I'm going to need something like a transform node. So again, press on tab and write transform. And I will press Control and connect to this. Okay, you don't need to do to press Control and connect every time. What you could do is just press on the node, and then you go tab, and then you get the last node that you've used automatically, and then you get it here. Okay, So we're going to do the same. I'm just going to give a little bit of space between these nodes. This way. Okay, so same thing, tab, transform, connected, tab, transform, and tab, transform. Good. I then go to the last one. Well, every time I get transform, and when this is selected, double-clicked, I get this, this gizmo over here, all right? So let me go to the last one, and I can move him around, or here, when I double-click, I get the parameters. Well, I just need to make him smaller, okay? So that is going to be something like scale. Let's go with that. I'll try 0.1, because I need him to be really far above the lake. I can't see him now because I've got the other kids, but that's fine. That's kind of the right place. Then I move to this guy over here, and I'm going to move him a little bit to the right. Scale him down to 0.22 maybe, yeah? And then move him somewhere here. Can you see him? Very far, okay. That's him, all right. And then I come here to the girl, and I reduce her size to about the same, and then move her to the left. And I'm going to go to the other girl, reduce her size, 0.2, probably 5, and put her somewhere here, a bit higher. It's interesting to have some sort of overlap between people if they are, I mean, just to give the impression that actually they are in a, give the impression of realism, okay? If they're all separate from each other, it's going to be, well, it's just better. Okay, it's just better to have it. So I prefer to have this girl a little bit in front of the other, and what we see is the her feet are covering the other's face, but they are going to be moving around. They're going to be levitating, so it's okay. This is just the first frame. But I really like sometimes to have this kind of. It's just an artistic choice. Good. Let's go now to the last kid, and it's the guy over here. It's fine to have him in the foreground, but I don't want him to be that close. So we're going to reduce the scale again to 0.3-ish. Let's push him even 0.27. All right, something like this. You could push them even further, but I prefer to keep it like this, just so that you're able actually to see the kids. I'm not sure how much of the screen you're able to see, but I want you to be able to see them levitating in here, okay? So now I can come and adjust their position, just double-clicking on the transform. This is fine, this is fine. Probably the kid here could move a little to a bit above. All right, something like this. Overlapping is always good, is always good. Okay, probably this one doesn't have to be that far. Should I bring him closer? Yeah. Cool, nice. Okay. What do I need now to do? I need to bring in the rock. Okay, what I've done, well, actually, I need to have a reason to explain a few nodes. So I have done a bad job about the rock to justify using some additional nodes. This is our rock, and I'm going to add with the E6 over here. That is not E6, that was A3. Let me just try to get my A6. I'm going to move this one a little bit around to get my A6. Okay, this one around, and this is my A6. And I connect it. Same story about the frame rate. We will talk about that. Okay, stuff that we do actually in the beginning, but I just wanted to dive directly into a compositing to show you how easy it is. Here is our rock, very badly cut. Well, I want to have the limitations to show you how you can manipulate things. I can only, as you can see, because it's very badly cut from here, and this is rubbish, and this is all very badly cut. You see the white line here, the white border. I can only use the top part here and this side. Well, this means I need to do something about it. I need to mirror it. Let's first transform it. Let's first reduce, or shall we start with mirroring? Let's start with mirroring. Mirror. And so this way you can flip it, right? All right, so there's vertical flip or horizontal flop. We're going to go with the horizontal flop. And then comes our transform as well. I'm going to bring transform a bit earlier, before. Okay, there's transform, and I am bringing it here. I just want the rock to be in the foreground just to create some, well, just for artistic choice. All right. I want to cover a bit these I'll just move it around here. I want to cover these very saturated herbs. Like I've got some saturated green here. I know I can work with the color correction node, but for now, it's just a compositing thing, okay? I'm going to make it a bit bigger, 1.1. What point? That should be enough. That should be enough, 1.1. Okay, so what do we have now? We have something in the background. Let me just move it a bit up. That is it. So I only used what I needed to use, and the rest, the rubbish, is hidden down. Well, I had to come up with something bad to justify the use of mirror, to justify the use of, again, of transform. And because stuff that is in the foreground, when you're filming and you have the kids in focus, you are going to have this one blurred. And you're going to have the background blurred. So I want to blur this one. What do I do then? I just come here and press tab and write blur. And we get a blur. And let's say just try in here 10, too much, 2, okay, 3. Actually, I'm just mimicking the behavior of a starter, okay, of a beginner, just to show you actually how easy it is for somebody who would want to start. Okay, size 3 should be fine for blur, and we're done. We are done. Okay, finished. So, and we've done this in a little about 10 minutes. All right. Obviously, the purpose of this exercise is not the compositing itself, but to show you how easy and simple and visible it is to work with compositing with nodes. After that quick compositing exercise, it will be much easier for you to follow now. Now we talk about the interface. There's this part here, which is the viewer. Down here, the second section is node graph, where we connect a few nodes and we get the final viewer, which is then visible here. On the right, every time you double click on any node, you get on the right here a list of parameters that you can tweak. But haven't you noticed something has changed in the screen? This is not Natron. This is Nuke Studio. Let's go back to Natron. And notice the huge similarities between Nuke and Natron. Nuke and Natron. Not only the interface viewer, node graph, curve editor, dope sheet, properties, viewer, node graph, curve editor, dope sheet, properties, and then you've got a list of nodes here, image, draw, time, channel, and more color, image, draw, time, channel, color, and every time you go in there, you've got some other color correct, color lookup, what else? Grade, HSV tool, hue correct, saturation. Let's go back to Nuke. Color, where's color? Color lookup, color correct, grade, hue correct, HSV tool, saturation. For the most part, they are very, very similar. Of course, there are differences. Nuke has some paid plugins, additional plugins, but Natron has some nodes that try to mimic a little bit the functionality. So you get different nodes, but you get similar functionality. So what does it really mean for you? The fact that Natron is hugely similar to Nuke in almost everything. What it means is that by learning Natron, you are automatically learning Nuke, the industry standard in compositing in high-end films. What it also means for you, especially if you are an After Effects user, is that you can add to your existing compositing skills with layers, you can add to that the node-based compositing method, which is the workflow that is used in high-end films. You are going to be able to do that for free with an open source application that is almost like a replica of Nuke. Well, not exactly, there are differences of course, but for the most part, it is the same. You only have wins with Natron. You get a stronger, more powerful, more visible workflow by using nodes, and you also get to work with the industry standard due to the similarities. What it also means for you is that if you know how to do something in Natron by learning Natron, and you open Nuke for the very first time, you will be able to do it again exactly the way it's made in Natron, for the most part. Nodes are called the same thing: read, transform, merge, viewer. Read, transform, merge, viewer. Read, transform, mirror, blur. Read, nuke needs an additional node, but we'll talk about that much later. Transform, mirror, blur, and then merge. You have exactly the same workflow. There are, again, only wins with Natron. By learning Natron, you are learning Nuke, the industry standard. Well, now that we have seen a quick compositing and we have seen the similarities with Nuke, we are going to stay with Natron. From time to time, we may look at Nuke for reference purposes, but we will stay with Natron. Let's start from the very beginning, okay? We go to the website where we can get Natron, the cross-platform open source compositing software. Up here, you have your download, and you get the version, that works for you. And also, please consider taking project examples, especially if you don't have your footage to practice with. They give you 3 project examples, and especially the second one, the spaceship. So these are quite useful. All right, so when you download these and install, it's quite straightforward. You then come to Natron. Well, let's start again with Natron from the first step. It's not the interface. The installation is quite simple. You just follow that and you open it and that's it. But it's the configuration. There are a few things that you need to be aware of and you need to change based on your needs. We will start with configuration, but to be able to understand that configuration change, I need you to understand how Natron works. Node-based compositing in Natron is such that Natron never recalculates the same node twice. Well, that is a good news, which means it is going to be much faster. It manages the resources properly. This node, once it's changed, it is cached. It is saved. The result of the node, not in total, but each node, the result of it is saved in the cache. This way, if I come here and change only the blur, it doesn't recalculate everything to show me the viewer. It just recalculates the blur. All of the other untouched nodes are saved as cache. Okay, well, that's a good news. That's great. That's faster. What does it also mean? Well, it means that it's saved somewhere. Okay, it's saved in a cache. Well, we have a specific tab here in the interface, in the menu, that says cache. And it's starting clear disk cache, clear playback, clear per node, clear all cache, clear plugins. Well, clearly there's something about clearing cache that is important to have a menu just for that, a menu item just for that, a list for that. Well, you are going to work with a few videos, right? Compositing is about bringing many things together and creating a new thing. This means that, and it's going to depend on how big your footage is, your video. If you're working with 4K, several of them, or 8K, or if you're using heavy files, it is going to cache this stuff. And if it does cache it, it means the cache is going to be growing up quite fast, depending on your footage. Well, you want to be aware of a parameter. Not here. The idea is not to keep working and every time clearing the cache. This isn't the approach I would recommend. I would recommend that you come from the beginning to the edit preferences and you go to the tab caching. And here you set your parameters right so that you don't have any problems down the road. I don't expect any problems as such. It's just the idea that it's going to use the cache, and once it reaches the maximum, it starts deleting the earlier cache. That's all. So 2 main parameters here. Disk cache path. Where do you put that cache? If you have 2 disks, 2 internal disks in your computer, one is mainly for the operating system and for applications, and the other one is for data. Well, I recommend you put it in the data one, not in the operating system one. But because this is reading real time from the cache, if you're playing, it's reading from the disk, from the cache, and not recalculating it on the fly. It means the speed of your of the disk where you're going to put the cache matters. So if your second disk where you put the cache is only 5,400 RPMs, rotations per minute, that is one thing. And if it is an SSD, it's another thing. While if it's somewhere in between 7,200 RPMs, that's a bit better than 5,400. But it's just something for you to take into account, okay? That is the first one. The second part is the percentage of the RAM that is used. By default, it's 50%. Now, you know what? You could absolutely work with the default values, but be careful that if you only have one disk, it could go. Okay, not one disk. By default, it goes to your C drive, and I would recommend you don't do that. So I want you to consider changing this one, but you could leave this one as is, as default. Just you need to understand what it is, depending on your RAM. In my case here, it is 32. So it's taken about 16, 50%. What does 50% mean? When it reaches 50%, it is going to start deleting the earlier caches of the nodes that were calculated first. That's what it means. And it means that when you are going to make a change, it's going to recalculate them again. Okay, so just to be aware of this, this is an important thing for your speed of processing, for managing your resources. Tracking. Now, before we proceed any further, I would like to discuss a few very important concepts that need to happen already during filming. So already during production phase, some things need to happen for your tracking during the post-production phase to work, okay? So during production, you're going to need to have the role of a VFX supervisor on set. It could be, and again, it depends on your budget, it could be a person dedicated as a VFX supervisor, or it could be a role. Somebody who does, in addition to what they do, does VFX supervisor, okay? That is really important, right? Because on set, it's very important that the VFX supervisor role, not necessarily the person, but the role is present. And preferably somebody who doesn't have too many things to do, right? So if the budget is limited, that person should not have too many things to do. I'm talking about small productions here, very small productions. If there's multitasking, so a person has several hats, and you think, well, we don't have money to get a dedicated VFX supervisor, somebody needs to do that because it requires some attention to detail. Now, what is the level of detail we're talking about? When we're talking about let me just reset this to number 1. This is going to be 1. Okay, when we talk about tracking, there are 2 very important things that we need to keep in mind, all right? I know that the VFX supervisor has a lot of things to worry about, but for tracking purposes, 2 are specifically critical, are very critical. And these are the presence of tracking markers. Now, in here, let me see, this is number 4. There are no tracking markers. So should the camera move, it is going to be really a nightmare to match move. All right, so a green screen without tracker is not a professional green screen. In this case, this video, the camera is not moving. This is a stock footage and the camera is not moving, so it doesn't make a difference. But I want you to get in the habit of always having markers on your green screen, even if the camera is not moving, because if after you decide to move the camera, then you don't need to stop and then if you remember it, because you risk to forget to add the tracking markers if you move the camera. But even if you remember it, it's going to be time consuming, and time during production is quite costly. So from the beginning, please have your markers. And your markers the location depend on the height of the actors, the movement, the zone where they're moving. Sometimes, well, it's preferable to have them outside the movement of the actors, but sometimes there's no choice. You need to have one. They need to walk in front of a marker. That's fine. That's like plan B. It's okay. It's okay. You can paint it later, but if you can work with markers outside the zone, it's even better, right? Because you can remove them easier if you do it manually, or if you're going to do it the image-based keying way. It's part of the deal. It's part of the packages. They get removed automatically. Okay, it's way better. But if you have no choice but to have the actor move in front of a marker, that's fine. Okay, if there's a lot of movement. Now this is one. The markers need to be there. Let's have a look at some more footage. We have this one is 5. Okay, so we need to have markers. The second bit, let me just look, sorry, before the second bit, let me just look at other footage. Okay, we don't have markers. 7, no, that's a different story. That's a different story. Let me come back here to number 3. We don't have markers. Okay, so these are instances where we can have markers, but we don't have them. Now, what kind of markers would you have in here? Of course, it's not going to be manual, but it's going to be part of the picture that you're going to be displaying, and it just needs to be all sorts of circles and crosses and stuff, and in different color. Okay, in different color to the border, or sorry, to the background. My apologies, to the background where they are. And I'm going to talk about the background in the second part. But let's move here to these ones. Let's see number 7, for example. Now, sometimes it is not practical to use markers, like in here. Okay? This is going to be one of the exceptions where you think the second rule is enough. Now, the first rule is you need to have markers for tracking. The second rule is coming. It could be enough in this case, okay? And this is why the VFX supervisor, the eye of the post-production team, VFX post-production team, needs to be present during production to see and look at the shot. Yeah, okay, it will work. And in this case, it will work, okay? Let's have a look at other footage. 6, okay, you don't have tracking markers. If you want to track this, you don't have tracking markers. You need to have tracking markers. This is where it is practical to have them. You can have them, but you don't have them. So what is it going to be? It's going to be like a small tennis ball. Generally, it's about, you've got a VFX set, VFX supervisor set. You've got the half balls, you've got the full balls, you've got the white ones, you've got the tennis ball style. If you have nothing, you just use half of a tennis ball because they have that shiny, not really shiny, it's just like it's an edgy green. It's quite contrasty, okay? It's very useful. You could use white markers, you could use whatever, but the idea is that we need to have markers. Same thing applies to shot number 9. Here, we can use some existing things on the airplane, but it helps to have markers, okay? So, and let me have a look. Number 8. Number 8, if you think you can put markers, fine, but sometimes this can act as a marker. All right, so you don't always need to have manually added markers. This can be a nice marker, but do you need one or do you need more? That's another question. Okay, so first part and the last one here is the, yeah, you need same story as in number 6 and 10 is about similar, same story. You need to have something that is in contrast with the background. Cool. Let's move to rule number 2, and it's contrast. It is the most important rule when it comes to tracking. The first one is presence, of course, of markers, but let's have a look at this. Number 5. Do we have enough contrast here? What do we mean by contrast? Contrast between what and what? Between the markers and the background of the markers. This is very important, okay? Let's have a look here. Number 3. Do we have enough contrast? The main point is you are going to find in some footage, and I'm just showing you a few of these. There's this one, there's number 5, 2, and 4. 5, 2, and 4. No, that is the wrong one, sorry. 5, 2, and 4. And that was not 4, that is 3. 5, 2, 3. Okay, 5, 2, 3. That's it. 2, 3, and 5. They all have the same mentality, the same way of thinking of we need to have green. There is no need for a green. What we need is a contrasty color. What is this? This is a black border. Okay, so what should be inside here? White, not green. And then you need to have your markers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 9, or depending on how many you need. You could live with 4 if you want. 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. But it's up to you, right? Circles, crosses, but the background needs to be in contrast to the borders. Let me have a look at number 5. Number 5, what do we have here? Same story here. We have gray, then why would you have green? You should have white, okay? Because then it contrasts with the border and it contrasts with the markers. Let's come to number 3. Number 3 is another example where you think, why are we using the green? Because this is white, then what you need to have here is black. I know, here you have some contrasty edges, okay, somewhat, but you need to have black inside here. And then the markers need to be in white. Okay, so white, black, white. Here, black, white, black markers. All right, so I want you to get in the habit of not following what you see mostly used in stock footage, or, I mean, yes, green is quite commonly used, but it's actually, it's got a purpose, it's got a function. It's meant to be something like this. Right, it needs markers, but this is why we use green screen, to key things. But when you're going to replace a screen, you don't need the green color, because you're going to use a corner pin tracker. And when you use the corner pin tracker, it doesn't really matter what kind of color you have, but it has to be in wild contrast with the contours, with the background, sorry, with the marker and the background and the contours, okay, and the borders. So you've got 3 things that need to be in contrast. So I hope it is clear. I've used a few examples here where it's done, I would say not wrong, but it's not ideal. You have some sort of contrast, but nothing wins the white and black. Black and white, nothing wins that. You're not going to get more contrast than black and white. Okay, so then the next part, we're going to go and take one of these image sequences, videos. Now this is a video, and we're going to work with this one, and we're going to track. Okay, we will do now the tracking for this video, and we have a tracker node. There is tab tracker. We can do this and add a tracker node. Okay, and then when you double click, you get these parameters. It is too early to work with the tracker node now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just delete it. Why? We have said that there are 2 main rules for the tracker during production that we need to pay attention to, so that the tracking during post-production works fast and everything is smooth. Okay, so the first step is to ask, do we have tracking markers? Number 2, do we have enough contrast? And only then we can add the tracker node. So do we have tracking markers? Yes, we do. Do we have enough contrast? Let me say I'm closer to no than to yes. Okay, because what we should have done, what they should have done, it's just stock footage, what they should have done during production is to have here white. All right, so if this is gray, and if it has to be gray, fine, but this needs to be white. So we're going for a bigger contrast, higher contrast. I'm going to go for no rather than yes. Okay, you could go for yes and give it a try, but I'll go for no. And we're going to change this to what it should have been during production, white. Okay, so this is your first step. We're going to add a color correct node. You can use other color correction nodes, like color nodes, but I prefer this one because it has the parameters I'm looking for. All right, what do we want from this node? This node is going to help us achieve the contrast we want. Is it just about contrast? No. We need first to remove all the colors, black and white, saturation down to 0. Then we increase the contrast, because that's why we're here for, and then we go to the gain and increase it even higher. What do we see? We see a black border with a white background and black tracking markers. Your tracker is going to love this. Okay, so now we're going to add a tracker. But wait, you may be thinking, hold on a moment, we have just ruined the image and we're talking about tracking. What do we do with this? Like, okay, fine, the tracker is going to be happy, but what about the final output? Well, because this is a node-based, this is my original source. This part here is only for the tracker to work. And I can connect the color one anytime I want. See, I can connect this one and from here move on with the rest of the flow. All right, so let me go back now here and let's add the tracker. Now we bring in our node and we're going to add a few trackers. These are the parameters. I want you not to worry too much about these things and come straight here and add the first tracker, okay? You can tweak a few things here, but the default values, what I'm saying, the default values are okay to work with. How many trackers do we need? There are two things. The markers are one thing, and the trackers are another thing. You may have more trackers than your markers, which would mean that initially during production you should have had more markers, right? In this case, there are only 4 markers. Do we need more? There is a tendency to overdo it, of having more trackers, because it's said the more trackers you have, the more accurate the track is going to be. Not necessarily. If you do your homework properly during production and you get the right number of trackers and the right contrast, you don't need to have a huge number of trackers, okay? So I have tracker 1, 2, 3, 4, all right? What we're going to do is just delete the start one by one, okay? This is 1. We're going to just put it here quickly. I'm going to place it properly later. I'm just put it there, and I will put it in the right place. This is not the way to do it. I'm just getting closer now. Now I'm going to zoom in to get it where it's meant to be. Right? Now we go back. We select the first one and we zoom. Let's reduce this one a bit. And let's bring in, to move the image, you use the middle scroll wheel, the middle mouse scroll wheel, okay? All right, and to zoom in and out, it's the middle mouse scroll wheel, okay? But you can press on the scroll wheel to move it. All right, this is our pattern, and this is our region for search region. I am going to move this here, not here, here. I'll tell you why. Because I want to have my marker, all of it, inside the pattern. And if I move it here, I'm going to get a bit of the border. I don't want the border to be part of it. I just want to have the marker. The border is going to be taken care of by the search region. So I make sure that my border is included here, just to say that I want the search region to include this part. Now, this is how I want to set it up. And it's going to be the same thing. I'm going to select a tracker number 2, bring it down here, increase this one to cover the marker. Same story here, cover the borders. Tracker number 3, quickly the same thing, and I'm going up because I want to be away from the borders. Increase this to cover it. And the same thing for the number 4. I'm trying to put the dot in a place where there is a difference, a really big contrast, and then have the full pattern included here. Good, okay. Is this enough? Absolutely enough. Now, we have given our tracker everything he wants. Tracking markers and wonderful contrast. So this should be quite simple. Now, remember, please, to select all of the trackers before you hit track. Otherwise, you may be thinking, oh, nothing is going on. What's because the trackers are not selected? We need to select them. And you come up here, you have track frame by frame. We don't want to do that, do we? You do it once you want to do it carefully, like it has let you down and then you want to correct it manually. You just start moving step by step, but I would rather go for track forward. Now, this is track forward. This is frame number 1. Actually, I'm standing on, yeah, this is number 0, which is 1. Okay. I'm at the beginning. This is the beginning. It doesn't have to be the beginning. You don't have to start from the beginning because you start where your markers are most visible. If it's in the middle or anywhere else, that's where you're going to start. And then what you need to do is track backwards and come back again to where you have started and go to track forward, okay? But in this case, it's from the beginning, and I'll just click on track forward. Tracking has finished, and the next step is going to be to move to the transform tab and change the motion type to match move, and transform type, keep it at corner pin because this is what we want to have, a corner pin. Right. Let me reduce this a bit and zoom out, and we will see what we get here. This is a rectangle with some dots, which clearly is a matter of moving them here. Now, we will not do this yet. There are a few things that we need to take care of before moving them, okay? So what we'll do is I need you to come here first, transform tab, and then make sure that these are not to, but from, all right? So we're going to come to overlay points and set this to from. So these become now from, okay? Before we start moving them to here, we need to disable something. There's disable corner pin. This is by default, it is unchecked. I need you to check it, okay? Because if you keep it unchecked and you move, it's going to distort the image. I need you to uncheck this, and then we can come and start moving these dots where they belong. Now this is moving a bit slowly because I've got the screen recording application as well, running at the background as well. I'll just move it like this, get a bit closer. Okay, what I will do, I will make a mistake here. Okay, let me deliberately make a mistake to show you how you can adjust it if you need to later. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just move it a little bit to show a bit of green. Okay, because it was initially green, and to give us a reason to adjust it later. Okay, so the 1, 2, 3 is okay, and the fourth one is with a mistake. We're doing it deliberately. Okay, what have we done? We have changed it. The moment you move these dots, you need to be aware of the frame you're standing on. I'm standing on frame 326. That is where I've changed it, okay? But the reference frame by default in your case is going to be 1, okay? The reference frame by default is 1. You either make sure before you move these dots that you are standing on 1, or it's okay, just make sure wherever you're changing these dots, whichever frame you're moving these dots on, you're going to use here. Reference frame, in my case, 326, so 326, okay? So this is very important, otherwise you are going to have a misplaced screen. Okay, so this is now done. The next bit is to export. We're going to export a corner pin, right? This node here is what was going to get inside. So this is the content. So I will first bring in the content, but I have an advice for you in this case. You can bring in already your video, like, or your sequence of images, whatever you want to replace, like to put inside. But I strongly recommend that you start with a checkerboard. You can find it here, image checkerboard. This is brilliant for making sure that, let me show you what it looks like. It's a checkerboard basically. But when you do like this is very useful to check once you put your stuff that the proportions are okay, that the image has not been distorted. And nothing is better than a checkerboard to check that, okay? So I'm gonna come back to my tracker, make one here, double click on this, and I will add a merge node. Now we haven't finished yet. There are a few things that we need to tweak, but I want you to see what things as we progress. So I'll just tap M for merge and connect the background to the color image, and to the foreground A to the corner pin. Okay, what happened here? We did not set the frame rate right at the beginning. The frame rate 25 versus 24. So I'll just undo this, okay, and come back here. What's the frame rate here? 25. My project is 24. I need to change this to 25, okay? So this is one of the things that need to happen in the beginning. All right, let's go back. Tracker, I'm now going to put A again, to corner pin, and we have a merge node. I'll press 1 and we're able to see everything. But what happened? Well, what happened is that we are midway in the process and we can't see all of this. We cannot see the checkerboard in the right place. It's okay. What we need to do now is to come here to the corner pin, and from the front tab, we need to set to input region of definition. Once we click on that, then we get the checkerboard right, but it fills in the full screen. We need it just in the area we have selected. We go back to the tracker and we disable the corner pin. We just we uncheck disable. We uncheck disable the corner pin because we just did that to make sure that the image doesn't get distorted. And we click on compute. Once you click on compute, it jumps to where it's meant to be. Okay, let's get a bit closer here. We have exactly everything as we wanted, plus the deliberate mistake we have made. Now, what do I have here? I have to adjust this stuff. How do I do that? Quite simple. You just come over here and you push it. Okay, that looks a bit straightforward, does it not? Well, nothing changes. Okay, so when you push it, it's pushed, but you see that the screen did not update. And I still see my edges. And if I render it like this, it will come up with the green edge here. So you need to remember to click on compute. The moment you click on compute, it covers, it closes the gap. Good. And this is how you do the tracking. Now you're able to change your checkerboard with any video you want, and it's just a matter of placing it as the source instead of the checkerboard. But this is a good starting point for you to make sure that you have the proportions right. All right? Good. Let me go back to the first frame and we are going to play this. Now, of course, you notice that these dots and this rectangle is displaced, not the checkerboard. The checkerboard is in the right place, but these are displaced. Why? Because their reference is at the end, 326. Okay? Let me play this for you now. Actually, let me just frame it first and then play. I go back to the beginning and we play. Okay, that was it. Good. Okay, now you can replace this checkerboard with any image you want. Color correction in Natron. Before we proceed any further, I need you to add something to the interface, please, because when we talk color correction, we should be able to see the colors as well, okay? So here, down here, we'll be adding here, split vertical, and we will be adding a histogram, so new histogram. This way, when we work with colors, we'll be able to see what we're doing, and I'll be able to explain to you a few things. It will be better, you will understand better, okay? That's number one. Okay, so where do we get our nodes from? You have down here the list of nodes, and everything has to do with color is in here. You got color correct, grade, HSV tool, saturation, quite a few, hue correct as well. So quite a few nodes. We're going to start with grade. Okay, so let's start with grade. Number one, grade. I'm going to explain a few things before we move to the parameters, because well, this you may already know it, but in case you don't, I think I should explain this. I'll do it briefly. I'm talking here about the red, green, blue, and alpha values that you see on the screen down here. Here, when I move with the cursor, for every pixel, it gives me the values of the red, green, and blue. And the alpha, well, the alpha is not there for a simple reason that when I double click on the read, here, output component, it says RGB. If I say RGBA, and I come back here, I will find my alpha there. But alpha is equal to 1, which basically means opaque. Okay, there's no alpha in this footage. Okay, so I'll just bring it back to RGB. That's in case you need alpha. And what are these values? How important? Why should we even care about these? There is something about the range, and everything you do has to do with that range. Everything is between 0 and 1. 0 being black and 1 being white. Now, are there values less than 0? If you move in here, you won't find that many. You won't find any actually. But there are instances where values go below 0. You have negative values. These are what we call the sub-blacks. So 0 is black, and you have negative, that's sub-black. And 1 is white. 1 is white. So this is the 0, and this is the 1, right? 0, 1. 0 is black, and then when it goes lower than 0, it's sub-black. 1 is white, and when it goes higher, it's super white. Now, the sub-blacks and the super whites are not welcome. We want to make sure that our values stick within the range of 0 to 1, okay? That is for a correct picture. Now, when we come to the grade here, I have clump black and clump white. Now, to make sure that my values, this is by default checked in. By default, you have the blacks don't go lower than 0 because this is checked. If you want your whites not to go higher than 1, then you need to do this as well, okay? So just to make sure that we protect our values between 0 and 1, we keep them in the range. Now we talk about the parameters, black point, black, white, multiply. What is all of this? Okay, this is why we talked about black values, white values, zeros, ones. This is exactly the point why I had to mention this before talking about the grade. Note, black point is basically 0 here, and white is 1. Okay, now when I increase this, what happens? The image gets darker. Okay, so what happens really in the background? In the background, I am telling Natron that I want the values of the pixels that have 0.17 to be converted into 0. Anything between 0 and this value needs to become black, needs to become 0. Okay, so it's like redefining the black. And because most of the values are somewhere here, between 0.05 and 0.3540, most of them are here. If you go just a bit like this, you've covered most of the image. Okay, so this is something to be aware of. I right click and I say reset. All right, white point is exactly the opposite, but it does the same thing. But that's for the white. Where we have 1, if I bring it down from 1, then I'm saying, can you please turn the values of the pixels between 1, now this time we're starting from 1, not from 0, between 1 and 0.37, which basically covers 0.9, 0.8, 0.7, 0.6, 0.5, 0.4, up till 0.37. All of them, make them white. We didn't manage to cover much because, as I said, much of the values are between 0.05 and 0.35. But if you go any lower, you start touching the other values, most of the values, okay? Reset to default. Black, well, this simply redefines what black is. Black is 0 or is black 0.5? 0.1. It's just redefining what black is, and here redefining what white is. Okay. I don't think you want to redefine black and white. Okay, changing the values. It's more like if you need, you tweak the black point and the white point. Multiply. Multiply is taking any value of the pixel and multiplying it by this stuff in here. If it's 2, then you're asking, and if the value of the pixel is 0.22, then it's going to become 0.44. Okay, so this is what really happens in the background. It looks like we're increasing the gain, it looks like we're making it brighter, but in reality in the background, that's what's happening. We're making pixels times 2. Its value is times 2, which means it's going to be lighter. Okay, multiply by 0 basically means, I just did this by mistake. That's a mistake, but it's a good mistake now to explain. Multiply by 0. The initial default was 1. Multiply by 0 means Everything needs to turn black. That's what it has done for me. You wanted black, I gave you black. Okay, 0.5, I have asked for the values to be divided, so it becomes darker. Let's go back to the 1. What does offset do? Okay, before we move to offset, let me go back to black point and white point and explain what happens in the histogram, so that when I come to offset, you know what I'm talking about. Remember when we have talked about increasing the black point. When you increase the black point, can you look at the shape down in the histogram? What is going on? It is being sucked towards the 0, which basically means please make, it's like moving all the pixels and making them 0. Not all of them. As I go up, it converts those that are between 0 and this range, it's converted into black, which is this value here, 0. All right. Same story when I come to the whites. If I come down, it is being sucked by the 1. So it's like that you have a vacuum cleaner and you're just sucking them, right? But it comes, it's like they are being converted into 1, so they're being sucked, moved. Now, the difference with offset is that when you move it, you are actually moving everything. The whole shape is moving. You're moving everything towards the white or everything towards the black, moving the whole shape of the pixels. And the last one, the gamma. The gamma is, as you know, just acting on the midtones. Midtones means we're going to, it's like holding the shape from the middle. And we move it. If we increase up, we are actually acting on the midtones. True that this part has been shrinked now, but once you start moving it, it's like holding it from the middle. Okay, we're acting on the midtones. Okay, enough about this part. We are now going to move to another node, and that is going to be the color correct node. Okay, let me bring the color correct node. Well, let's use the tab and color correct. Right, color correct, I want to use it with this footage. All right, let's connect to this footage and move it just a little bit like this, get it a bit closer. All right. Color correct, what is the difference with grade? Like, why would you use color correct and not grade? Well, color correct gives you way more possibilities because it acts, you can act individually on shadows, on midtones, and on highlights. Not only just on the master, on the whole image, but you can adjust these parameters, same parameters for shadows, midtones, and highlights. Now, before we start tweaking this to see what difference it does, the shadows, midtones, or highlights are already predefined, okay? But you get the chance to change them if you want to. If you want to redefine shadows and midtones and highlights, by all means, you can do that. Where can you do that? In the tab here, ranges, you have your shadows, midtones, and highlights. Like, where are the midtones? Where the midtones are the difference between shadows and highlights. Now, in Nuke, you find shadows, midtones, and highlights. In here, let me just press okay. All right. So when you select shadows, highlights, you by defining these, by changing the definition, I'll just select this one as well. By moving this, you actually are also redefining the midtones, because it's what's between shadows and highlights is midtones. You can, this way, if you want, redefine them depending on your image. There are some particular cases where you want to do that, but most likely than not, you don't need to do this stuff, because then you can come and act on your redefined ranges. Okay, now we don't need to redefine anything. We're going to reset and come back to the control. Shadows, midtones, and highlights. Now, what can we do? Say, for example, for the shadows, and they're going to be the dark sides, the dark parts of the image, I want to desaturate them a little bit, because if I want to have this one like a more darker and black, and more black, I want to desaturate it just a bit and increase a little bit of contrast. Okay, I'm just acting on the shadows. bit of contrast, and no gain. Now I need to be careful that I'm not hurting my black details. All right, and I will come to the midtones and give a little bit more saturation. Just for the midtones, not so much. Okay, and I come to the highlights and give a little bit more gain. Okay, so this is a little bit just an example of tweaking that you may want to do. I'll just reduce the gain a bit. No, just reduce it a bit. Okay, so before and after, let me just stand on the color correct selected and then press D for disable. Before, after, before, after. You can act individually on shadows, midtones, and highlights. Okay, now we're done about this node. We're going to move to another one. Let's move to the next node, and that is hue correct. Hue correct is, oh, let's just bring it with the tab. Hue correct. Now this one is quite handy, very, very useful for many cases, but specifically, well, we're going to take an example where we have a scene and there's a lot going on, but for some reason, the blue jeans of this guy are standing out in the image, yet they don't have a role in the whole story. And you may be thinking, I want to downplay that blue. I just want it to merge, to be invisible in the whole thing. Like, it's all about what's going on. It's all about the little girl crying, her father died. It's all about what is going on around her. And it's not about the trousers. So what we think is we need to just target this one. Hue correct is where you start targeting colors, okay? With rotoscoping, you can target images, zones of images, areas, but with hue correct, you are going to select a particular value of hue. So when we move, just if you look at this part here, when I move with the cursor, it's already telling me what the values are. But wait, if I do like this with my mouse and move away, it disappears. Well, it's because I need to select it. How do I select it? I need to press Control Shift and then select that color. Now that I've done that, there's this rectangle and the value is fixed. Now, what can I do about it? I can do all of this stuff. I can act on the saturation, luminosity. I can act on the reds alone, on the greens alone, on the blues alone. I can, this is red suppress, green suppress, blue suppress. I can remove the red, I can remove the green, remove the blue, and I can act on this saturation threshold. What I want to do now is simply desaturate it. So what I'll do is when I do this, I get this line with a few dots. These dots are just there to help me. So I'm going to move them around. Where's this line? It's here. So I need to be somewhere here. I need to bring this. I need 3 dots. One to be on the left, one to be on the right, and one to bring it down. So now you notice, and please be careful with how wide this range is. Now, the wider it is, the more values of your image are going to be impacted. Now, maybe this is the look you want to go for. By all means, do it, but be aware that if you only want to target the trousers and nothing else, well, unless there are exact values of hue on other objects, which I don't think there are, then you're going to target just that particular value over there. And I'll need to stand on the... That's it. If you notice now, let me just disable and enable. Disable, enable, disable, enable. Now, there is some blue here, right, which is also being impacted. You can reduce this to have less of an impact on it. Okay, and now it is less visible. So the only bit is we're acting on the trousers. Gone, disabled, enabled, disabled, enabled, disabled. See the difference? Let me bring it closer. Enabled, oh, sorry. Enabled, disabled, enabled, disabled. This is where you think something is standing out too much, or you want to bring something to the attention Okay, so if you want, if there's an object, if there's a gun, if there's anything you want to make more obvious, you can come and give it a boost of saturation, a little bit of luminosity, and yeah, you just bring it more to the attention of the audience. And that's one of the uses of the hue correct. Okay, now this one is done. Let's move to another node. And for this one, I'm going to come to this clip over here, and I will change to another frame where I have two people shooting with a gun, with Kalashnikovs. Okay, this is good enough. Okay, right. Well, have you noticed this rectangle is still there? Now, how do you get rid of this? Well, how did you bring it in? Control Shift. Okay, Control Shift and click. It's gone. All right. All right. Now I'm going to bring. Let me just delete this one. I'm going to bring the other node, which is the HSV tool. HSV tool. This is a lovely one, and it's about creativity. You can change things. Okay, I'll show you one of the uses. Say, for example, you use hue rotation. Hue rotation is when you start redefining, actually moving the colors around in the color wheel. The color wheel, let me just bring that thing, color wheel. Okay, it's as if we are shuffling around. It's like we're moving this around. We're like shifting the blue is here. Okay, we're going to put it somewhere. Red is here, or it's probably going to end up here. Green is maybe it's going to end up here. So it's like moving it around, which basically means if we come here now and look at our picture, if this is blue, now it's going to become something else. So we come to HSV tool and we can tweak a little bit, but then, yeah, this is now impacting the whole image, but it's just to give you the idea of what you can do, right? So it's even impacting the sky. And if you want to change the color, like to reddish, bit of olive green, if you want to stylize your image or part of the image, and when I say part of the image, you need to do rotoscoping for that. You rotoscope, and then you apply this one to the mask, to the rotoscoping. And since we have mentioned rotoscoping, that is the next section. Rotoscoping in Natron. We have here Draw, Roto, and Roto Paint. Let's start with Roto. Okay, we connect this here. And we have a few tools on the left here. We have Selection tool. We have here the possibility to create with Bezier tool, Ellipse tool, or Rectangle, depending on the shape. We're going to be using Bezier tool. And you also have the possibility to make changes. All right, so let's select the Bezier tool, and let's say that we would like to select this door, okay, to be able to do something with it. So I'm going to start drawing, right, I'll do it very roughly. Okay, so this is really rough, but it gave me enough mistakes to correct later because I need to use a few correction tools for mistakes, okay? Now, this is selected by default, which means that I can change, move my little dots here. If you would like to have more, say for example for this part here, well, you can come here and then you've got list, add points. Okay, I need to add a point. Then you add one here, and you could add even one more. Then you come back to the selection and you move it a little down. Something like this. Another here. I need to move the selection again. All right. Now, some of these edges are quite harsh. They're quite, these corners are quite, I need to smooth them. We come here and have smooth points. Now, when you click, nothing happens, but it's like you have activated the tool. Now, when you come to any of the points and you click on it, it becomes smooth. Okay? Now, you can't move it yet. You need to come back to the selection tool to be able to move it around. We are going to need one more. This one needs to be smoothed. And we select and we bring it back. Okay. We may want to smooth this one as well, and this one as well, and this one as well. And add one more here, and one more. Select and bring it a little down. Bring this one a bit up. Something like this. The idea is not to make a too detailed selection, but to give you the idea of the techniques. Okay, now we have this selection. What can we do? What we can also do, just a little bit like this. Okay, what we can do is we can come here, and we also have the possibility to open or close the shape. Now, if I click open or close, it activates it. Nothing happens. But when I click, if I click here, does it open this part? No. It opens the shape. Where did we start? We started back here, down here. So if I click anywhere, it will open or close this part. Click. This was open now because I've started here. If I click again, it closes. Open, close. It doesn't open the place where you click. Okay, good. And you've got a few other tools. We've got remove points, cast points, smooth, open, close, remove feather point tool, and we will talk about the feather in a short while. Okay, now that we have this, let's say we want, of course, to isolate just the door. Well, I've got this in the background, which is the car. This is not the door, so I need to select it as well. Let me do that. I'm going to then click on this and get another selection here. And I close it. Of course, a few tweaks about the smoothing. I smooth this one and this one. Smooth this. Yeah, that's fine. Although it appears a bit weird, but it's fine. Right, I select and start moving around these things to cover exactly where they're meant to be. Now, it's a little bit too much in terms of, okay, I've got too many points. What do? Do I just remove them? Remove points tool. I don't have this one. Okay, so something like this. All right, smooth this one. Okay. All right. Just a quick change here. I'm going to remove one of these. Remove points, remove one of them. That should be enough. Okay. Now, what do I, okay, just one last. And this should be it. You know what, I'm going to cusp point. Much better. All right, good. Now that I have this selected, I am going to move to the alpha. And then you think, well, I thought that we selected that one to remove it. So I just tapped on A. Yes, we selected it to remove it. Now, where is my door? So this is the door and this is the window. This is the door, this is the window. You have here in your properties for the roto a list of whatever shapes you have created. Okay, right. This is the window and it has an operation of what? This is over. Now I need it to be difference. Where is my difference? Okay, now it is gone. So when I go back and I want to act on the door, do anything, I'm going to need to, I can do that. I can do that. But I'm going to need to move it if it's moving. If the camera is moving, or if the if the object that is being rotoscoped is moving, the rotoscoping, like the keyframe, this stuff, the shape needs to move as well. Okay, it needs to be animated. All right. So now what we're going to do is just come here and change the color for this stuff to see one of the users. And since we talked last time about tool, HSV tool, then let's use that. Because last time we had used it on the full image. Now we're going to use it only on the door. Mask, and we're going to change the color. Okay, so this way you can target specific areas of your screen and act on them. You can desaturate. You can do all sorts of things, right? You can, well, shall we desaturate this? Color, correct. And instead of doing a mask for this, we're going to get it like this. And we can desaturate this one, just the door. You can act on your selection, okay? Now, enough talking about the Roto node. We're going to move to Roto Paint node now. Roto Paint, I want to use this footage instead, okay? I will delete this one and just stay with this. Let me quickly check. This is 79 frames. Not much, but my project is a lot of frames. So let me just bring it back to 79. Okay, so now that I have this, I want to go back to the first frame. First frame, we have these people, and I'm going to press F to center it. Good, let's bring in the Roto Paint node. Now you can either type here, Roto Paint, or bring it from the draw menu. I will connect this. We have the background connected. And what do we get? We get the same tools we had for the Roto node, plus some others. Plus we have this, this, and this. So this is what? This we have clone and reveal. Here we have blur and smear, and here we have dodge and burn. The most interesting ones, to be honest, are the first ones, but you can use the second and third as well. Clone and reveal. These are the ones we're going to be spending time on, but I'll just briefly touch on these, okay? They're not very exciting. This is the most exciting part, is clone and reveal, when you want to duplicate somebody or just make them disappear, all right? But there are a few things that need to happen during production for this to work, all right? So for cloning, let's say we want to duplicate this guy. When you click on clone, you get, can you see there's a small circle following my cursor? Now, this is a brush. I'm going to increase it to about enough to be able to select him. Yeah, this should be fine. 170. Yeah, this should be fine. So I'm going to duplicate this guy and just make his copy here in the video. So how do we do that? We're going to stand on the reference, press Control, click, and then move it to the side and release. When you release, you now can very simply paint. Yes, you get some artifacts sometimes like this, but don't worry, it's just a calculation thing. Sometimes it happens, but everything's going to be all right. Let me just, I'm doing it very slowly to avoid duplicating too much of the background behind him, because we would like, that's it. This should be kind of enough for me. A little bit here, that's it, okay. Maybe a bit of his head, yeah. Okay, I think I gave him too much of a haircut there. Right, somewhat to the right here. Good, okay, so I've got my guy duplicated. Maybe I want to duplicate his shadow a bit as well. Something like this. Now I can reduce the size of the brush, of course, to get a bit closer to the first replica. to the origin. But for now, we're doing good. Okay, so this is how we duplicate a person or an object. There's another thing. Let me just bring my circle back to where it belongs. Control again. Okay, I bring back the brush to 25 and I move to what? To the reveal. Reveal. Okay, I don't need this clone anymore because I've already shown you that. I will delete it and we will go with reveal. Reveal is quite useful. It's actually more used than clone because you are going to need to remove people more often than add them, okay? Then more often than duplicate them. So if you have somebody in the background that doesn't belong there, if you couldn't get full clearance for the whole area and somebody somewhere, you have a big village that you're shooting in and the inhabitants are so happy to accommodate you, but a kid opened the window and it's a period piece and the child is like today's look, that is going to be a problem. And you just need to have a clean plate because if he wasn't there in the first place, it means that you already had a clean plate. So let's say that this guy doesn't belong here and I only need these on the commander. So this guy doesn't belong here. I'm going to remove him. How do I do that? Let me come back to the video, to the sequence, copy and paste it. I have in the last frame, I'm going to come here, double click on the copy, and first frame, I'm going to say 79. So first and last are the same. Just give me one frame. And you notice here, it's empty. Now let me show you closer. You can select this one and press 2. This is empty. This is 1, this is 2. So this is a clean plate. It is very important to have your clean plates if you have any visual effects whatsoever that you need to make for any corrections. Okay, clean plates are extremely important. It's something we address during a green screen. It's something we address during any post-production that requires visual effects work, rotoscoping, revealing, cloning, even during clone. When I cloned, I may have added a little bit of the background, but if you have a clean plate, you can come back and clean it again. Okay, let's go back. So I have this as a clean plate. What do I do then? I'm going to connect it as a second background to the roto paint. Let me just remove this. What happened now? The roto paint has the first background and a second background. This goes behind the foreground, behind this picture. Okay, so if I want to remove this guy, then I will just come here to my roto paint, double click on it and come to my reveal and increase the size. What was it? 170? Actually, I don't mind now. I can go bigger because it's fine. Yeah, I can do that. I'm going to be closer to his hand, to this guy's hand, to remove the shadow as well. So I better be a bit careful. So 150. Yeah, this should work fine. Okay, so, and what we do is just start painting the guy out of the plate, removing him completely. A bit of the edges. It doesn't always do this black stuff, black artifacts when you're painting. It's just done it the first time now. Okay, so making sure I keep the shadows of the guys. The guy is gone for a simple reason that I had a great clean plate. Now the whole video can run easily without the guy in the picture. Okay, so these are the two most used functionalities of the roto paint. You also have, let me just remove the reveal and then reduce this size to 25 again. And then you have I'll probably keep it like 100 or 100, 200. And then you have the next one, which is blur and smear. Well, blur does exactly what it does. It's like when you come here and you start painting, it's going to blur. Oh, sorry, I am still with the reveal. I'm still with the reveal. That's not good. Let me just remove this reveal. Oh, you see, by the way, that because I have a clean plate, I could even remove these ones. Well, I've just done it by mistake. Okay, now I'm on the blur. So if you come here, it is going to blur. Well, it's doing this black stuff here just for the first time. Don't worry about this. It never did it before, and don't worry about it. And you can adjust the opacity and the hardness of the brush and the strength of the effect. Okay, so you can make something blur. Although I think for the blur, you may want to do it differently, but this is another way to do it. And then you have the smear. Let me just remove the blur again. I'll go just quickly through these ones because it's not really, these are not really a big deal. Smear gives you this kind of effect. It's stretching something. It's this stretchy effect over here. See? You may end up needing this for any stylized something that you want to work with. So the option is there. The option is there. I'm moving now to the next one, which is dodge and burn, where they are the opposite. So dodge is going to make you, depending on the opacity again, it does this. You get this kind of effect. See, it's like if you've got a dragon place where the golden whatever sand or whatever. This is the kind of effect, and I'm going to keep it in and work with the burn. Burn does exactly what it says. It just burns. It's like burning the image, right? So, and it's something that you can reduce and adjust the strength of the effect with the opacity of the brush. Okay, so these are the effects. Green screen keying in Natron. First and foremost, I would like to talk about a few principles that we need to grasp before we talk about the post-production side of green screen keying. During filming, there are a few things that we need to be aware of. Okay, when you are filming in production, there's a role that you need to have in there. As I said, it doesn't have to be a person if the budget is limited. It can be just a role, but it needs to happen. So number one, that person or that role is going to make sure that whatever green screen you're using has markers on it. A green screen without markers is not a green screen, okay? So it's the match moving is impossible. And for the markers, even if the camera is not moving, you want to have your markers set so that if you decide later to move the camera, you already have them in. You're already protected. If you forget or you carry on without putting markers, you are already covered because from the very beginning, you already have them on. Second thing is that for the green screen, it needs to be evenly lit. Well, that's stuff you already know, of course. It has an impact on the variations of green that you have, and therefore the keyer has less colors to worry about, less variations of green to worry about. It's not caring about the keyer, it's because the keyer has to be more aggressive when it starts going up in the selection of the green. If it's selecting light greens, see here, up here, this is light green, this is dark green, this is dark, this is a bit dark, and this is another topic, the shadows, and this is a bit dark. Now, what do we have here? The keyer, when you select the light parts, you are going to be selecting just this part over here. But if you select the dark parts, the dark greens, you are going to be selecting also the light greens. So if you select light, you don't include dark. If you select dark, you don't include light. You can also look at it as saturated, non-saturated. If you select non-saturated, you also include saturated. If you select saturated, you don't include non-saturated. But I prefer to think of it as dark light. Okay, so why are we talking about all of this? Because initially, you need to have, during production, evenly lit screen. Do your best. I know sometimes it can get big. The filming area can be big. You may be using 2 or 3 pieces of green screen, a bit for the ground, if you need to have on the ground, a bit for the top parts, a bit for to be like acting as the wall, and you could have 3-4 pieces and they may not have the same green. I understand that some products could be different. You may be painting something that ends up differently than what you've purchased. You are going to have to deal with this, okay? And the good news is the method that I'm going to give you is going to work with that. So when you have differences in green, I'll give you the method that addresses that part, okay? So But during production, please, let's make sure that our green screen is evenly lit. Another thing is, of course, when I came here and I talked about the shadows. Shadows on the ground are good. Shadows on the wall are not. And here, when I say wall, I mean the green screen acting as the wall. There needs to be a distance between your actors and the green screen. Take it as a measure in terms of spill. If you get them closer, you're going to get their shadows on the green screen. Bad news. You're going to get the green on their clothes and on the reflective stuff they have, or they act. If they have reflective shoes, if they have glasses, if they have here, they have phone. This is reflective. This is reflective. This is reflective. And I don't know about the shoes. We don't have them in frame, but they're going to be reflective as well. We need to get them as far as we can from the green screen. And yes, it could be a challenge if you have a small green screen. Okay, but something to be aware of. Another thing is when you are filming, please be sure to film with the highest quality possible in terms of format, in terms of codec, in terms of everything camera related. I think it is, yeah, I'm tempted to say it is the most important thing, because you may do everything else could be great, but if you miss this part, you are going to give your compositor, you're going to give the keyer very, very low quality information, color information. But what is keying? Keying is all about color. And if we're going to give compressed footage, so this is the key thing, compression. Compression is the enemy of green screen. So if you have raw, that is brilliant. If you have just ProRes, lower quality than raw, but then still high quality, that's fine. But please don't go any lower than 422 10 bits. 422 10 bits is the absolute minimum. Going any lower is going to be a disaster. And yes, I have chosen a disaster video to demonstrate the technique. So I'm advising you not to do it, but I'm giving you here an example that, okay, I'm going to give you a technique that works even with the most, with the lowest quality videos there are. So this is stock footage, which is completely not respecting any of the rules we talked about. No markers, not enough distance. We've got some clearly not evenly lit. We've got this part here. Well, they've done some good job, but still not enough. This part is closer to the lighting, and this part is clearly not evenly lit with this. So I've chosen an example of a video where everything has not been respected. And I will apply the technique and I'll show you that it is going to work. But please do yourself a big favor. These rules during production are going to save your composite and your green screen compositing in the post-production. So compression is the enemy of visual effects, not just green screen, of visual effects. The higher the quality of your video, the better the work and the easier everything is going to be during post-production. Okay, now we're going to move to the next part. I still have one very important aspect during filming, but I'm going to leave it till we talk about the keyers, okay? So we addressed 4, and there's a 5th one coming. So again, recapping quickly, the 4 are: number 1, tracking markers; number 2, evenly lit green screen; number 3, distance from green screen; and number 4 is the compression is the enemy of green screen, okay? Now we move to the keyers. What options do we have? Well, just like in Nuke, if you come here, you have a tab with keyer, sorry, an icon with keyer, and you've got a list of keyers in here. Plenty of choice, slightly different naming sometimes from Nuke, but you'll be surprised that they do about the same thing. Okay, now, of course, we don't have Keylight, of course, we don't have Primat, of course, we don't have Ultimat, right? These are paid plugins that initially, well, paid plugins, they are part of the price. When you buy Nuke, they are initially included in the cost because Nuke has like purchased the right to use these things. So it's why it's included. But when you talk about an open source compositing software like Natron, you may be thinking, well, probably then the list of keyers is not that good. I will show you that the pick and pick color, this combination, compared to the Nuke combination, the Natron one is more robust. Well, for a simple reason that, as you know, in practice, what do we do in practice? We don't use one keyer. we use a combination of keyers. Okay, so we use what's called an Uber key. An Uber key is a combination of, say, keylight and primat, ultimat and IBK. Sometimes just keylight with keylight, and a combination. And every keyer is going to take care of a specific part, a specific aspect, something in that image, and a very limited task. And then the other keyer is going to take care of something else. And then together they're going to give to a third one, which is the Uber key. All right. So just to summarize now, we have a list of keyers. They're different from Nuke, but they're doing really good job. Okay. So when you use these keyers that we have here, you are not going to be missing much from Nuke's keyers. Okay. And I'll be showing you the extra parameters that they have added. In Nuke, by the way, it's called BIC. IBK, image-based keying. So you have the IBK gizmo and the IBK color, right? So this is IBK gizmo, PIC. Sorry, I just jumped. Okay. PIC is the IBK gizmo and PIC color is the IBK color, but a bit stronger than the Nuke version. Okay, because they have added some parameters from Keylight. So it's like they have combined IBK and Keylight in one. Really, really powerful. And this is the one we're going to be using. And this is the one that will save the day when you have differences in green. I'm saying even if you have different green screens, and not just the lighting, different green screens. So when you have it not evenly lit, you can use this one. It's not a reason during production to let down, okay? So respect the rules, follow the guidance during the production, and then it will be much easier in post-production, whatever approach you take. Good. So now we're going to bring in these fellows. Oh, by the way, haven't you noticed that when you look at the icons here, you have this eyedropper. Here, same thing. Here, here, same thing. But when you come to pick and pick color, they don't have an eyedropper. Is it just an artistic choice? It's something else, because it's a method difference. These keyers select a color. These do something completely different. And let me show you the beauty of their work. Okay, let me bring this one. Okay, we got an error. It's not a problem because I just had this one selected. No worries. Let me just delete it and bring another one. I didn't want to have anything selected. Pick, here we go. That is pick, and then pick color. Now I'm going to move to the fifth. Where is that? Oh, sorry. Oh, pick color. Good. I said I had a fifth rule that we need to be aware of during production. What is that? Well, I now need to talk about it when I have brought this one over here. Right, what is this? Pick color and pick, these two, they work together to give you a good key. How do they work? They tell you very simply, they ask you the question, do you have a clean plate? Well, it's not required, but it will make your life easier. Good. So this is the fifth, I would say, rule, guidance during production. Get yourself a clean plate of whatever green screen you are shooting. Sometimes it can be challenging, sometimes it can be difficult, sometimes you don't have time for that, I understand, but it will save your life. It will save you a lot of time during post-production, okay? So pick color is acting on behalf of your clean plate if you don't have it. Again, it is not a reason to say, well, yeah, I've got pick color anyway, so we don't need the clean plate. Clean plate is always the best. There is nothing better than reality when it comes to trying to get a clean plate, because pick color now is going to recreate your clean plate if you don't have it. This is how they work. Pick color is only here to tell you, okay, you don't have it, no problem. Well, we wished you had it, but I'm going to do it for you. So pick color is going to do it for you. Do what? Pick color is going to recalculate the whole thing. It's an estimate. It's an estimate to give you something that looks like a clean plate. Estimate the green that is behind this gentleman, all right? And give us the full image without the two people. So it is a different approach. When we start working, we're not going to select a green and start tweaking the green until we remove the green. We don't remove the green. We remove the people in front of the green. And then we remove not the green, we remove the whole background, which is the clean plate, or the recalculated clean plate. And then we'll come to pick here for the rest of the work. It is a brilliant approach if you're not used to that in Nuke already, okay? So what do we do? I'm gonna have to bring this one here, and please get in the habit when you're working, especially with this pick, color, and pick, and generally when you're working with green screen, to have two viewers. So I'm gonna come over here, split horizontal, create a new viewer, and this is my new viewer. Okay, now I am going to have, well, it's not meant for the background, but we will see, we'll see. What do we have? I have pick color. Now this needs to be connected to your footage, the source. So it uses your footage as the source, so that it takes it and it starts to do its calculation to get you your clean plate, your calculated clean plate, in case you don't have one. What do you notice? We got something weird up here. Well, that is absolutely all right. There's nothing wrong going on there, and I'll show you why. What you do is then connect this C, actually color. Well, I think it's more like a clean plate. Yeah, C, look at it more like a clean plate than color, but it's like color and clean plate. I would rather read it as a clean plate. You get the clean plate from pick color. You get the background. The real background is here. Okay, what do we have here? A frame rate difference. All right, let's come and check our, this is 24. This is 29 point stuff. This is 25. We have a big mess. So you know what? I'm just going to change this one, custom, to 25. And then I'm going to change, what have I got here? This is 25. And then I'm going to change my project to 25. Okay, good. These kind of things we should arrange in the beginning, but it gives us a warning when there's a mismatch between the frame rates of the project and the incoming footage. Good. Now, what were we doing? We connected the clean plate, we connected the background, and then we are going to connect the foreground. What is this? This is the foreground. Yes, this is the foreground. We connect the foreground. And it says, yeah, 25 is 25. It kind of just a cache thing. Just forget it, ignore. All right, good. So what do we have here? I have a background, foreground, and clean plate. But these two, they don't do any compositing. They just do the keying. For the compositing part, you're going to need a merge node. So M, merge, and you get the background from here, and you get A, the foreground from here. And then we connect to the viewer, to the second viewer. Well, hold on a moment. This is really getting weird. Not only this part is weird, but this one as well. Why? Let me go back here and look at this. Screen type, blue. It's by default blue. You have the option to turn to green. And then pick as well. Screen type starts as default blue. And you can change it to green. Now it's different. All right, now let's start the work of these two nodes. How does it work? Okay, number one, because I generally recommend that whether you're working with Nuke or with Natron, for the properties, you only have one. By default, you get something like 10. This is the default is 10, so then you keep having a whole long list of properties. Every time you click on a node, you end up with, let me just open node, read, pick. You have plenty of these. This can get very confusing, really. This is why I tend to go with one. Just one to make sure we're working on the right parameters of the right node. Exceptionally, when we're working with green screen, especially for pick color and pick, I prefer to have it 2, and only 2, because I have 2 here. So I'm going to start with pick and then pick color, by having pick color at the top and pick at the bottom, because this is the sequence of events. This is step by step. We first come here, tweak the parameters, and then come here and then tweak the parameters, and then we do the rest. Okay? I'm going, just for the sake of completeness, add what is a generally a guest of honor in any compositing green screen. You have the dispill. So I'm just going to add dispill already. You can add it later if you want. I'm just making sure that I have all my nodes ready to go. All right. What do we need to do. Let me just get the order right here. Pick color, pick. What did we say? This is now all about recreating the clean plate. This is now removing these two gentlemen, the foreground, and keeping the green. The other keys here, we've got chroma key here, the other key here and stuff. They choose the green, they remove the green. Now we're not going to do that. We'll do the opposite. We'll remove the people, then get the green, then remove the whole green, not just one color. Remove the whole thing, and then we end up with just our two people. Okay. Very, very smart approach. IBK, image-based keying. It's the principle. It's also the name in Nuke, but here it's called PIK, pick. Good. So how do we do that? Now that is, again, assuming you don't have your clean plate. If you had your clean plate, you would put it here instead of this icon in this node. Instead of this node, you would get your clean plate. So it would not be, you wouldn't have any, you wouldn't have this connection of source, and you would have clean plate going straight to this. All right? Good. Let's now connect it and go to the next part. Pick color. All right. The parameters, size, don't worry about this, okay? You can, after you finish all the tweaking, come to size, tweak it a bit just to see what it does. It's not something we need to worry about. We do want to worry about the darks and the lights. And before we start touching anything, please come here, and you may end up forgetting this stuff, but please, it's important that we tweak only the greens. That's why you click on three, and come here and work on the greens only, because we are now trying to make sure we are tweaking our greens. We're not selecting them to remove them, we are tweaking them. I'm trying to get this cleaned, okay? So I'm going to remove the darks and the lights, but then slightly. If you start going, it's about reducing them, like it's minus. So here, if I go wild like this, minus 0.5, it will get completely, it's exaggerated. Yeah. So let me just go like this, minus 0.1. We should not have any contamination. So it's about cleaning the darks, but at the same time, we do not want to have contamination. This is contamination. So I really need to go really, really gently with this one. Go with minus 3, minus 0.003. Okay, this is fine. But then I need to clean the lights as well, to reduce the lights, have a netter green. The lights, I'm going to go down. It's starting from 1, so we're going to 0.9, just check in. Okay, it is kind of okay, but we have some contamination. We need to go back up. Going back up. Okay, I think I'm going to have to go back up way. Okay, let's reduce this one to 2.5. Okay, and probably back up here, as I still have 1 pixel here. So chances are I'm going to need to go. Okay, gone. So I have reduced a bit the lights and the darks without contamination. So this is what you need to do. Your objective is reduce these values without getting contamination to the point where just the contamination is gone. Okay, this is how we get a cleaner green. Now that we have done this, we're going to start removing these two gentlemen. But if we and how to remove it is by removing the black. But if you notice here, we have some blurry black. This is not going to be removed if we remove the black here. This is going to stay, and this is not good. So what we need to do is make sure that this part is also black. And this is why we need to use the erode. Erode, what it does, it doesn't erode the black, it erodes the green. It actually inflates the black. It makes it bigger to eat up this part of as well, to increase, to cover it as well. And this is what we'll do. It's not just him, it's everywhere. It's everywhere, you see this. So we're going to increase this, erode. And this one, you don't need to worry too much about the values. It's not about going 0.001 or something. You just make sure you cover. I'm going to just press F to center this. Right, am I okay with this? Well, it may be okay. I may need, yeah, kind of okay, good. You can come back and tweak it later if you feel you need. And how will you feel you need? It's actually the result of the keying. It's going to tell you if you need to come back and tweak this. And now we're going to do is patch black, which basically means get away this foreground. So we just remove it like this. Still, it is gone. Now you notice, this is what I said, you may need to tweak it. I think I'm going to remove this just a bit. Okay, and then let me just frame this. All right, and we've got our background, our foreground gone. What is this? Why is this dark? Why is this light? Well, this is again one of the rules during production. What did we say? What was rule number? Rule number 3. Distance from the background. Distance from your green screen. Now, this is one of the important parts, and we've already explained, but I'm adding you something new. I'm telling you something new now about this distance. You know when you have shadows on the ground and the people move out to get the clean plate, well, the shadows move with them, of course, so the shadows are not there. Okay, so what does it mean? Shadows are not part of the green screen to be removed. This is how PicColor is thinking. PicColor has been given the task to recreate your clean plate. So when you ask the people on set gently, can we please have just a clean plate? They leave, their shadows leave with them, right? So what does it mean? When they are back with their shadows, PicColor knows that these shadows weren't there, that these shadows should stay in the composite. So PicColor gives you back your shadows on the ground. It is beautiful. It does beautiful work. You get the shadows for free. But if you are too close and the shadows are part now of the foreground, of the background, PicColor thinks this is your normal background. So I'm going to remove it. It is now going to remove the shadows. You are going to get no shadows, whether on the wall or on, I'm saying the wall, like the one that you see her standing vertical, and whether on the ground. So this is why you get your own clean plate. PicColor is going to give you back your shadows, and you put the shadows with the composite in, and it looks brilliant because you get back your shadows. Okay. Second thing, when you use markers and you ask gently the people to leave, the markers are still there. PicColor looks at that and thinks, yeah, this is also part of the clean plate. This also needs to go. You don't need to work on the markers. They are gone by definition. The beauty of using your own clean plate has so many advantages. And PicColor is actually doing your plan B. Just look at it as your plan B. If you don't have a clean plate, they can save the day, but there are so many things you're missing. All right, you're missing your shadows. You have to manually go through your tracking markers, depending on how you want to do it, with paint, roto paint, or whatever. So it's a lot to be won with your own clean plate. Let's now go back, because this was really important, especially for shadows. Now, how will you bring back the shadows if somebody is walking on a green screen on a green floor? Now, generally, it is recommended you don't have a green floor. The most objects that the actors interact with should not be part of the green screen. Generally, you have noticed in recent years, the ground, they create it in such a way that it's the world that it's meant to appear in the screen, and only the upper part is somewhat covered. If you look at the Mars, they recreated the ground, but the atmosphere, it's fine to be in green. So it's just something to be aware of. Cool. Now we have finished this part. We have recreated now this. What is going to happen now? Pic has received this information and says, okay, so you are telling me, PicColor is telling him that he needs to do this minus this. Okay, that's the beauty of not selecting just one color and variation, literally removing the whole thing and just keeping our two gentlemen. So this is why I have rather good quality from the start. We haven't started actually. Actually, we've just started tweaking things. And by default, the values already give you a very good result. Okay, but we are still working on this. We haven't even touched the pic. We haven't even done proper green screen key in, right? Because now when we move to the second one, we're going to switch to alpha. And then you see, ooh, actually there's a lot of mess there. There's a lot of noise. Yes, we're going to work on that. You notice here, when we were working with pick color, you remember this value of darks and lights? Now this was for our naked eye gone. But for the gamma, if you increase it, you're going to be able to see, oh, it's still there actually. Okay, so you may decide to come here and tweak it a bit. Sorry, that was not this one, it was here. You may decide to come here and reduce even further. Not reduce, it's like get close. This is it. Okay, this is when you may want to go back. Why is it preferable to go back here than tweak it in here? You can absolutely do it here, and this is the parameter, by the way. This is clip black. We'll come to this. You can absolutely do it, but you're going to start hurting your edges. But if you do it here, you are changing the definition of what needs to be taken away. And that is a little different. So this is much better if you do it here. Okay, I think this is about enough. 0.98 is about enough. So what I'm going to do, this we have removed quite a bit here. And then we come back here because clip black and clip white are quite aggressive. And they do great work, but they can hurt your alpha. They can hurt your matte in the edges, especially the clip black. Okay, now we move to the next one. So we've just looked, switch to alpha, go back, tweak this part here, like be less aggressive. That's basically go back up. That's what I mean. Go back up on the darks, go back up a little bit on the lights until you have about enough to work with. This is all right. This is for me fantastic because this is going to be gone like with just a minor tweak with the clip black. Okay, now a few things before we move to clip black and clip white. Sometimes you may have red weight and blue weight. So if you have green screen, we're talking blue weight. If we have blue screen, we're talking green weight. So what you may want to consider is just slowly bring down this if you have any issues with chromatic aberration, if you have some reds or blues in the edges. This is going to slightly take care of that, okay? So just 0.48 or 0.47, stuff like that. Just very, very minor, just to make sure if there are any reds or blues in the edges, we take care of that. Now we move to the part where we clean the black and the white, okay? Now, this stuff you will not find in IBK under Nuke. This is the additional part that Natron has added to the Natron IBK. And this, you're going to notice, is familiar from Keylight if you've worked with After Effects before, or if you worked with Keylight inside Nuke. So what they've done is they've combined the beauty of IBK in Nuke and the beauty of Keylight in Nuke, and they've got the double beauty of the pick. So I believe firmly that pick and pick color is way better than IBK in Nuke, for the simple reason that they have just combined it with another, with the strong parameters of another keyer, so they have 2 in 1. I don't mean 2 in 1, because IBK is also 2 nodes. I mean like 3 in 2. Okay, they've got 3 in 2. All right, so clip black, I'm going to move just up here. What this one does is it converts the values that are gray into 0. I am now redefining black. Instead of saying black is 0, I'm saying, okay, black is now 0.81. What that means is that any pixels that have this value need to be converted to 0, need to be considered as black. So I go up just a little like this. This could be enough. We don't know yet. We will check. And one way of checking is pressing this, changing the alpha, the gamma, increasing the gamma here a bit. And you see, we still have something here. Okay. So, and you have a hole here. I'm going to increase it just a little bit. That's it. That's about enough. Be very gentle, please. Why? Because we have already tweaked the darks and the lights here. We've already removed most of it, and we were left just with a bit. Now, this is not exaggerated. This is fine. I need now to work on this core matte here. Inside, we've got transparency. Ah, come over here. See this? Okay, this needs to go as well. This needs to go. So clip black, we need to remove this as well. Okay, fine. Just about enough to remove it. We're good to go. Now, we're good to go where? To the white part. Clip white could be, it could very well be. Now, you notice, hold on a moment, you notice this. This artifact is not, it's in the fact that Natron is not necessarily recalculating all the nodes. It's just temporary. It's not an issue. That's what I mean. It's just a temporary thing because it's trying to maximize, optimize the use of resources, and it doesn't recalculate all the nodes every time you change a parameter. And then if you zoom in or zoom out, you may end up with something like this. All you need to see something like that. All you need to do is just like, yeah, zoom back. It will be recalculated again. Don't worry about that. All right. So what I'm going to do is clip white now. Clip white until my transparent parts inside are from the most part gone. I don't mind having some transparency in the edges for a simple reason, because edges are meant to be transparent. If you've got hair, you are going to have transparency in there. Okay. So I don't want to hurt this part too much. See, this is not pure white, and I'm okay with that for the simple reason that this is hair. We should have something like this. This is how we reveal some detail. Okay, cool. We have a good core matte now. We have good white and good black. So this is a go. Well, we're not done yet. We have still some stuff to do. Okay, let's convert back to RGB. And what do we have here? There's something that seems to be wrong. What is that? Okay, we have the background coming in the merge. We have the A. I've just disabled the dispel. And we have the pick. Now, what I have is, let me see, something has, okay, brilliant. This is a fantastic opportunity, again, to repeat what we have mentioned earlier, that if something feels wrong in your screen here, get in the habit of checking the reds up here. If there is any red, it's telling you you have changed this and you forgot to bring it back to default. We have changed the gamma. Remember when we wanted to clean the blacks? We changed the gamma. We didn't bring it back to default. Just click on this and it goes back. Okay, so generally when you mess with something and your screen doesn't look fine, check up there, there's something red somewhere. Good. We need now to activate the dispel, okay? And we're going to work with even better. I'm going to get closer now to this hair. All right, what do I have? I have some light here, light parts here around his hair, and that's not something I want to have. I can help. I can help this part, help darken this part by activating two parameters that could help or hurt your keying, and it's all a matter of trying, just checking them. Use background luminance and use background chroma. What does that mean? This helps for the compositing to get the foreground and the background closer by using the luminance. Remember why we have now the foreground connected? I mean, pick color. The background connected. The foreground is needed to be this minus this. It gives us the two gentlemen. But you notice that actually I said pick color and pick, they don't do the compositing. I need a merge node. Why did we connect the background in the first place? If it's not going to do the compositing, why does it need the background? For this reason, for the use background luminance and use background chroma. What it does is it helps provide a better matte to the merge by using information coming from the background. This is one of the great keyers you can have. It takes information from the clean plate. It takes information from the foreground and it takes information from the background, and then it pushes to the merge. Right, now if I activate this, you notice the difference? I'm going to get closer. Now this image, as I said, I have chosen a really mediocre quality, like a very low quality video. This is stock footage, and stock footage is like really not meant for VFX. But if you want to practice, this is a great opportunity to use stock footage because they are very bad quality. If it works on stock footage, it will work great on your very good raw film or ProRes film, or it will work very well. Right, so I got closer so that you can see the difference. I'm activating and deactivating now. See this in here? Where is that? Yeah. So when I activate it, it is going to use the luminance from behind. Now I'm also going to use the color. Now the combination of these two is great. Now I have way more problem to worry about, way more things to worry about, okay? So this is much better. All right. Let me have a look now. I'm going to move to the alpha because I feel, yeah, I feel there's some gray here. So I'm going to go up with the, bring down the clip white so I can crush it even more. Okay, good. Now the alpha is fine. Let me just frame this to see. Yeah, fine. Okay, let's go back to A. It will recalculate. Don't worry about that. It will recalculate. So I am right. Okay, it has recalculated. Nice. Okay, so what I can also do is use a little bit of clear black not too much, just a bit, to take care of the edges without hurting my detail. Right, let me bring it a bit. Bring it a little bit. Okay, good. All right, so please also, this is an important thing. Also, when you are tweaking, when you are making a compositing and you're working with the alpha, you're working with the map, you have a project, you have a background or a selection of backgrounds. These are the ones that you need to composite with. It's not the idea that you're going to make a map that is usable for any background on the planet. You have your specific project. It needs to match that one in particular. Okay? So when you are tweaking your edges, when you are tweaking your, this is why. Use background luminance, use this background chroma. When you're tweaking your edges, tweaking everything, you are going to need to have the background as reference for your comparison, okay? And this is our next step as well. So what I'm going to do, oh, the display, by the way, I just kept it at default. You can tweak the values if you want, but I kept it at default. And what I said is that now, since we talked about using the background as a reference for compositing and also for Luma and also for chroma, we're going to check the lighting difference between the background and the foreground. Let me just screen replace this with source. Okay, replace it with source and screen replace color. I'm just gonna tweak this a bit. I think, you know, I think this is enough. This I'm fine with this. I'm fine with this. What I need to worry about now is the lighting. There is a difference between the lighting of the background and the lighting of the foreground. How do we deal with this? Well, it's quite simple. Having finished the keying part, we go now to come to the compositing part where we add a little bit of detail. So I'm going to do tab and color correct just to get the foreground and background closer to each other. You can use a grade node. You can use any other color correction node, but I just prefer color correct node because it gives a bit more control about shadows, midtones, and highlights. If you have severe problems of difference of lighting, you can act on each part, on the shadows and the midtones and the highlights. You've got the same parameters. That's good. I don't have this problem. What I will do is just come here. I know that this one is a bit darker. The foreground is darker. The background is lighter. So I'm going to just come here and agree and increase a bit the gain overall and a tiny bit of contrast. See, and this is before I deactivate. I press D to deactivate. This is before, after, before, after. What did we do? We just got the foreground closer to the background, and it just matches way better. So we're going to recap. We have finished the compositing, we finished the keying and the compositing. We're going to recap. What does this method do? This method does not choose a color. This method wants to take all your background away. And it either does it by asking you for your clean plate. Hopefully you've provided that. If you don't have it, and try very hard to have it, please. If you don't have it, then it says, I'm going to recalculate it for you. I'm going to do my best to get you a good clean plate, but you're going to use your shadow. You're going to lose your shadows if you have any. And on the background, it's bad news if you lose them. But if it's on the foreground, it's okay. It's good to have them gone. I mean, on the wall, it's good to have them all gone. So the first thing is you're going to lose your shadows, and the second thing is you're going to have to remove your markers yourself, right? But PicColor is very happy to recreate it for you. And then the information is moved to Pic. It gets the clean plate, it gets the foreground. So this one minus this one gives you these two gentlemen. And then it takes the foreground. What does it do with it? Does it composite? No, it does not composite. It just uses light and color information so that it adds it a little bit to your matte. So when it gives it to the merge, it gives something much closer to your background. It's always a matter of compositing with your background in mind. Of course, a standard dispill here, and the last one was a color correct where we brought the lighting of the foreground closer to the lighting of the background. There are plugins, free plugins for Natron. You may have noticed on the left here, I have a few more icons than you do. Community, Ignite, okay? I'll show you where to get these. You search for Natron Community Plugins. You get as the first link, github.com/natronvfx/natron-plugins. Now this is the page for Natron Community Plugins. You come here, clone or download, then you get the zip file, download zip file. Once you download it, you come and place it here in C drive, program files, INRIA being the institute that supports financial aid open source project Natron, and plugins, so Natron version, plugins, and PyPlugs. PyPlugs, this is the folder where you put your zip file and you unzip it. When you unzip it, you get Natron plugins master. This is the folder you want to keep in here, because when you get in, you get BL, channel, color. These are all by category. Now, if I go back, I go to community, BL, channel, color, draw. These are the categories, okay? So this is for the first one. Now let's move to the next one, Ignite Express. This is from HitFilm, so fx.com. Well, it is free. It is free. fx.com is another application, okay, for video editing and effects and stuff. But this one is free. This package is for free. What you get here is free plugins. Get Ignite Express. When you click on that, you get, well, a little gesture, and then you download your application. It is an application that you install, and it is called, let me just go back here, try to find it quickly for you, Natron, and that is going to be plugins and projects, and this is what it looks like, Ignite Express, and this is MSI. So you just launch it, install it, and that's it. What does it do? It recognizes every single application on your computer that it supports, and it does support quite a few. It does support quite a few. So it supports a lot. When you see Nuke, it means it supports Natron. Okay, so Nuke, Natron being very similar, it does support Natron. So in addition to Natron, it supports all of these. So when you install it and you close and reopen again Natron, or actually any one of these others, you will end up with Ignite Express plugins added to it, okay? This gives you a richer toolset. Exporting our results from Natron, how do we get that out? Okay, file, you don't find anything here because, as we said, for read or for write, for importing or for exporting, it all happens with nodes, so it's going to have to be a node. And in image, you find write. So when you open it, when you load that, you get automatically a dialog box telling you, okay, where do you want to write it? Give me the name of the file and give me the extension of the file, which is going to be save sequence, because in Visual Effects we work with sequences. Okay, right. So I'm going to save it here, and I'm going to call it composite. I will make a mistake deliberately. Is that okay? Okay, let's do that. Composite number 2 or composite B. And I will want to deliberately make a mistake to show you something if you're not aware of it, but it's good to see that. And then file type, I'm going for OpenEXR or EXR, wherever that is. EXR. Okay, good. We're going for EXR, and I'm going to just click save. Okay. All right. Now I have frame range as the project frame range. Now, this is a choice. You can say, yeah, I've been working on the project. I want to render the whole project. Or you can render only a selection. And then you come here and say manual. And you say which frame. So in this case, I probably just want to have from the first frame to the 5th frame, because for the purposes of this demonstration, I don't need to render the whole thing. And it's going to go faster. 5 frames. And this is, yeah, either project frame or you can do it manually. I then can, having set everything I needed to set, making sure that I also have my RGBA stuff in there, I can come and click on render. But I need first to connect it. Right, needs to be connected to, not the viewer, to the merge, to the last one, because the viewer is just seeing this is the final result. You're going to connect it to the last node, okay, to the last node, which is most likely than not going to be a merge, or it could be a color correction thing, or it's the last node. It's the final thing you're going to work with. It's the thing that is connected to the viewer, the last one. So this is the right node, connected, everything okay. We're going to click render, and Natron is going to complain. Let's do that. Render. It should have complained. Okay. What happened? I deliberately tried to make a mistake, but Natron managed to correct it for me. What happened is this. Normally, you should get a warning, but I think they've changed this. This hash is important. I deliberately missed it. So what I said, I'll make a mistake. I didn't write a hash. But when you do an EXR, in this case, you just get it automatically. The hash is important so that you get the numbering, because this is an image sequence. Let's have a look at that. We'll come back here. Where did I put it? Natron, right. Let me come back and reopen it, because you could also, by the way, here, you could also, let's see, read back file. You can check this one to say read back file, meaning when you export it, bring it to the scene, bring it here to the node graph. All right. Well, we didn't do that. We're going to do it manually now. So I'm just going to bring it in. Where is it? It is in the Natron, and then Compositing, and that should be right. Oh, sorry, Natron, right. Right. And this is my B. Okay, this is it. This is I'm just going to put file to show you. This is creating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has created a numbering system for me, whereas I should have myself put hash. Open. And I'm going to give how many? Okay, that's enough. We only have one. I'm going to connect it. Viewer read does not have the same frame rate. Okay, yeah, this is another thing, because we have exported a 24, and we have export, what's this, frame rate, this is read 8. Let me just check the project settings. Project settings are 24, and this one, the right, is meant to take straight from project settings. Project format, yeah, not sure why we have that difference in frame rate, but these are what? These are image sequences. And by the way, when you bring it in and you connect it, image sequence by default, it goes as 24. Okay, because it's an image sequence. An image sequence doesn't have frame rate information for the simple reason that it's an image sequence. Okay, you can set it automatically here. Sorry, manually here. I'm going to my project settings and it's 24. And this is 24. Everything should be fine. Good. And let's look at this. It's number 2. Well, it had changed. It has changed. It's just I'm just remove this one. Connect just to one. And this is my composite exported. Okay, just 5 frames. Let me just move a bit. Okay, you don't see much because it's just 5 frames, but that's how we do it. A little bit, just a few movements there. Okay, so well, I could have asked for the whole thing to render, but I didn't want to make you wait. This is how you get your stuff out of Natron.